Chapter 11. Pete helps a policeman. With a tremendous push, Pam, Holly, and several other children flung themselves helter-skelter. Swish! Down came the big Christmas tree. It hit the ground with a bang, its topmost branches stinging the youngsters as the tree brushed past. The workmen rushed forward to see if anyone had been hurt. "We're all right," Pam assured the men. "Thank goodness," one of them said. "Stand way back this time," he cautioned, as they prepared to raise the tree again. The other Hollister children returned. When the onlookers had moved far enough away, the crane operator lifted the big tree back into the hole. This time it was fastened securely. A man raised an extension ladder up into the branches of the Christmas tree and climbed to the top. Behind him he dragged a long cord of Christmas lights, which he wound among the branches. Several more strings of light were set in place. Then, at a given signal, one of the men pulled a switch. Even in the bright sunlight, the tree became ablaze with many-colored lights. How pretty it looked. "I never saw such a beautiful Christmas tree," said Holly. "I'm glad we came to Shoreham to live." After the Hollisters had watched a while, Sue became weary, and they decided to go home. As they passed the creche, Pam looked in hopefully to see if anyone was there who could tell them about the contest, but nobody was around. The contest must be something about animals, since Mrs. Morris asked if we were going to put our burro in it, Pete guessed. "Maybe it's a show," said Ricky. "I wish we could find more out about it." None of the children could figure the answer, so they walked on home. As they turned into their driveway, a great racket greeted their ears. A banging, clattering noise was coming from the garage. "Oh, what's that?" Sue asked, clinging to Pam. The others started to laugh, and Ricky said, "Domingo wants a drink." Sue was puzzled and asked what he meant. It was not until the garage door was rolled up that she found out. The burro, holding his water pail between his teeth, was banging it against the cement floor. The little girl laughed and ran over to her pet. "That's a funny way to talk, Domingo," she said. "I'll get you some water right away, cutie pie." Ricky helped her. Then they all went into the house. After Mrs. Hollister had heard the story of the morning's adventures and said she hoped the Santa Claus outfit would be found soon, she added, "Well, I have pleasant news to tell you." "What is it?" the children chorused. Then instantly Holly said, "Oh, let us guess." "Give me a hint," Pete begged. Mrs. Hollister smiled. "All right, we'll have to get the guest bedroom ready right away." "Somebody's coming!" "That's right." "Mr. Vega," said Sue. "He's coming to visit Domingo." "No," her mother replied. "Guess again." Pam's eyes glistened. "Not our cousins?" "Yes, dear. Uncle Russ, Aunt Marge, and Teddy and Jean." "Crickets!" Pete exclaimed. "Are Teddy and Jean out of school this early?" His mother picked up a letter from the table and read it aloud. Mr. Hollister's brother and his family were on their way to Shoreham and would arrive the next day. The school at Crestwood, where they lived, had closed a week earlier this year. "Will they stay over Christmas?" Ricky asked hopefully. He thought Uncle Russ, who was a cartoonist, and his wife and children were about the nicest people he knew. "I think they will stay," his mother replied. "I certainly hope so. It will make Christmas perfect." After lunch, the girls offered to help their mother give the house a special tidying up. As on previous visits, Jean would share Pam's bed, and Teddy would sleep on a spare cot in the boys' room. They hurried off for the vacuum cleaner and dust cloths. Since it was Ricky's turn to clean Domingo's stall, he went to do this. Pete, with nothing special to take care of, decided upon returning to the trading post. There might be some news about the missing Santa Claus outfit. When he reached the store, Pete found his father talking to Officer Cowell. "Hello, Pete," the officer said. "I was just telling your dad we've been checking everybody we find wearing a red sweater." "Any luck?" the boy asked hopefully. "None. If we only had something more to work on, it would help. I was just going up to the roof to look around again." "I'll go with you," Pete offered. He and the officer carried the ladder outside and placed it against the rear of the building. As Pete waited for Cal to climb up, he gazed about him. His eyes suddenly fastened upon a man's rubber boot lying alongside a trash can. It was an unusually large, heavy one, with a star imprint on the bottom. The mate was not in sight. "Say, maybe one of the thieves lost this," Pete thought. "Nobody who works around here has a foot this large." Grabbing the rubber, the boy scampered up the ladder. He showed his find to the policeman, telling of his suspicions. Cal took the rubber excitedly. The next moment he leaned down and fitted it into part of a footprint. "Pete, you've done a great piece of detective work," he said, looking up. "This kind of rubber is usually worn only by outdoor workmen. Besides, the thief who visited this roof has long feet, so he must be tall. With these clues and the one of the red sweater, we ought to be able to find him easily." As Cal finished speaking, Ricky's head appeared over the top of the ladder. Having learned where Pete was, he had finished his job in a hurry and followed. Upon hearing the story, he said, "Let's hunt for the thief right away." The officer smiled and said this might be hard for Ricky to do. "But you boys can help me another way," he said. "Suppose you take this rubber to Detective Farnham at headquarters and tell him the whole story." 3 of them descended the ladder, and the Hollister boys raced off for headquarters. Pete carried the telltale rubber boot. The police station was located in one wing of the Shoreham Municipal Building, which was 4 blocks from the trading post. The Hollisters ran all the way. When they arrived, out of breath, they almost bumped into a patrolman coming out the door. "Hello, boys," he said. "Phew, you're really puffing. What have you been doing, chasing robbers?" "No, sir," Ricky replied, standing up very straight. "But my brother found a clue that might lead to some robbers." In amazement, the policeman listened to their story, and then ushered the boys into a large room. At one end was a platform on which stood a high desk. Behind this sat a police sergeant, answering a telephone call at a switchboard. Hanging up, the sergeant turned to the boys and asked, smiling, "What can I do for you?" "We'd like to see Detective Farnham," Pete replied. "We're Pete and Ricky Hollister. Officer Cal sent us with a clue to the Santa Claus that's missing from our trading post." "Fine, that's a puzzling case," the desk sergeant said. He picked up the phone again and spoke a few words. A minute later, Detective Farnham appeared at a side door. When the boys showed him the latest clue, he exclaimed, "This is great. We'll keep it here for further checking. It may be the very thing that will identify one of the thieves." Then he smiled. "I hear you children have another mystery on your hands. I mean the one about the burro. Cal tells me that every once in a while you find a note on him, and you have no idea who puts it there." "It's YIF, whoever he is," said Ricky. "Well, I'm sure you'll solve the case," the detective said, as the brothers started off. About 8 o'clock that evening, Holly decided to look in on Domingo before going to bed. She put on her wool cap and coat and opened the back door. As she did, the little girl noticed a mysterious shadow glide from behind the garage. "Daddy, come here quick!" she shouted. As her father hurried from the living room, Holly saw a dark figure run across the yard and disappear toward the lake. I think somebody was trying to steal Domingo," Holly cried fearfully. "We'll see in a minute," Mr. Hollister said, grabbing a coat from a hook on the back door. He and Holly hurried to the garage. They found Domingo standing contentedly in his stall. "He seems to be all right," said Mr. Hollister, reaching into his car and pulling out a flashlight. "Here, let's take a closer look." As the light shone on Domingo, Holly exclaimed, "Daddy, somebody was in here, look!" There was a new red ribbon around the burro's neck. To it, another message had been pinned. "Please read it, Daddy," Holly begged. Mr. Hollister shined the light onto the paper and read, "The time is near to play my part. please untie my little blank. Y-I-F. Well, this is getting more mysterious every day, Mr. Hollister said, as he and Holly hustled back into the house to tell the others. And I believe you almost caught the Joker. Oh, I wish I had, Daddy. Then we'd know what to do. The whole family gathered in the living room to figure out the message. I mean, it must mean, please untie my little cart, Pam said, because cart rhymes with part. Everybody agreed that this must be the missing word. But why should we untie the cart? Ricky asked, wrinkling his freckled nose.